Hello everybody and a very warm welcome to Silverstone and the Formula V8 3.5 Championship. This is the 9th race of the season and we have got plenty to look forward to over the next 40 minutes or so around a circuit which has always produced some great racing for this championship. This, the 5th of 9 stops, which takes us through to the halfway point of the season. We've already been to the Motorland Aragon, Hungaroring, Spa and latterly a month ago Paul Ricard, where we were treated to a brace of excellent races claimed by Igor Yuruchov and Louis Delatraz. So we're here on the Northamptonshire, Buckinghamshire border, the home of the British Grand Prix since 1987, the 5.8 kilometre long Silverstone Grand Prix circuit, which of course only a couple of weeks ago played host to the championship, which all of these drivers aspired to compete in, and that was the British Grand Prix. So here's a look at the championship standings then. Tom Dillman leading the way, but last time out in Paul Ricard, it was the first meeting of the season where he did not feature on the podium, and that meant Louis Delatraz could close the gap down to him a little bit, and Aurélien Panis third in the standings as well. The cars are forming up on the grid, and it is Mathieu Vaxivière, the winner of that horrendously wet race at Spa, who lines up in pole. Let's go down to the grid.
Mathieu Vaxivière, S&P Racing, what a nice pole position here in Silverstone.
Yeah, I'm really happy about this qualifying. Okay, we did the job, now we need to put it together for the race. We know from on the past it was complicated for us during the race, so I hope we solve all the problem and we will win this race.
Special weekend for everyone in France after the terrorist attack in Nice. Everyone, including you, displaying special sticker with the heart of France on a black circle. Emotional times for everyone.
Yes, I think this kind of a drum, it's hurting everybody, and yeah, it's a small thing that I can do. And I put on my car, so yeah, I'm happy for that, and that's it. There is nothing to say about this drum.
Hope the victory comes after so many hard works in S&P this afternoon, Mr. Vaxivière.
Yes, I hope we will get this victory.
Thank you.
So that's Mathieu Vaxivière, and what he was referring to was in Paul Ricard, he had fantastic pace, particularly in the first race, but the tyres went away from him quite dramatically late on. He has just got that one victory to his credit, and that came in horrendously wet conditions in Spa-Francorchamps, where he had an absolutely inspired drive. And there, as you can see, is the French heart that he was also discussing in the interview, displayed prominently on the nose cone of his S&P racing car. He shares the front row of the grid with a similarly liveried machine, but one that is entered by a different team, and that's the Arden Motorsport car of Igor Yuruchov. And Yuruchov, 2 victories so far this year. They came in the first race of the weekend apiece at Spa and Paul Ricard, and both of them actually quite similar in characteristics, in that Igor is a very tough driver to overtake, and he is there on the grid just preparing for the race. He was here very early this morning going through his fitness regime with his personal trainer ahead of qualifying. If he can get a good jump, it could be a very nice battle between him and Mathieu Vaxivière. Lining up in third place is Roy Nissany, 5th in the championship standings. And Nissany, 3 podiums so far this season, and all of them second places, including a brace of runner-up spots in Paul Ricard. And there is an argument that maybe race 1 is one that got away from him. He was able to challenge Yuruchov on several occasions, but he couldn't quite make that move stick. The outside of row 2 then, and that is Tom Dillman, the championship leader in the AVF car. Dillman, he's only won 1 race so far this season. That was race 2 of the Hungaroring, but he has finished runner-up on 4 occasions and was also 3rd in the opening race of the season in Alcanis. Dillman, very experienced at this level, and has also been doing a magnificent job in working with his less experienced teammate Alfonso Calis to make a very potent pairing for the AVF squad. On to row 3, and it's Louis Delatraz, 2nd in the championship with last year's champion team Fortec Motorsports. And Delatraz, 2 victories, including the last race in Paul Ricard, also the opening race of the season at the Motorland Aragon, and his racecraft has really been improving round on round in his rookie season in the Formula V8 3.5 Championship. And then 6th on the grid is Aurélien Panis, and a little bit of work being done there to the tail of the Arden Motorsport car. Hopefully that's nothing too serious, because of course, if you recall, he had to start from the pit lane in Paul Ricard. So let's go down to Gary Holman, team principal on the grid.
Mr. Gary Horner, team principal for Arden Motorsport. We are today in a shiny Silverstone, the heart of British motor racing.
It's amazing, isn't it? I mean, the weather here is incredible. I've been to Silverstone many times, but always in bad weather. So it's nice to be in English summer. So
we secure with Arden Motorsport. It's been with us for some time now. Today, this year, is Aurélien Panis, the son of Oliver Panis, and Igor Orujev, which is secured the front row for you today.
yes, it's good. It was very close. It was very, very close. We expected Olivier to come up a bit closer too. He's in 6th position, but it was very close during qualifying. So, but we're happy. We can race well from here.
Any weather broadcast? Maybe these green clouds around.
The weather's going to be weather's going to be absolutely fine. No problem. No problem.
Okay, the car so far is quite a strong package in terms of chassis, engine, tires. Is it a good school to continue to professional career?
Yeah, it's a good series. It's a strong series. The drivers like it. It's a good staircase. It's perfect for young drivers.
Thank you very much, and good luck for today's race.
Okay. All right, thank you very much too.
So that was Gary Horner, the principal of the Arden team, and of course the father of the Red Bull Racing Formula 1 team boss, Christian Horner, with whom he founded Arden initially to actually further Christian's racing career before they discovered they were very, very adept at running other drivers. Christian stepping aside from his driving duties, and the team still running at the front at the highest levels. Moving on down the grid, 7th place for René Binder, the Austrian driver, in the 2nd of the Lotuses. Currently 4th in the championship, although that is a championship position that's born more of consistency than spectacular performances. Now, for Pietro Fittipaldi, this is a big weekend for the rookie in the 2nd of the Fortec cars. Pietro, who raced in the BRDC Formula 4 Championship, knows his way around Silverstone. This is a track he can shine on. Another driver who knows his way around the Silverstone Grand Prix circuit is Yu Kanemaru, victorious here a year ago in the Euro Formula Open for making the step up into Formula V8 3.5s. Alfonso Calis lines up 10th on the grid, and that is the Mexican's championship position as well. But he has been steadily improving as the season has unfolded, including a magnificent 3rd place in the wet in Spa. Vitor Baptista, another driver who raced here last year in the Euro Formula Open, en route to the championship, and he stays with the RP Motorsport team who took him to the crown. And so far for Vitor, it has been a frustrating season, highlighted by a 4th place in Spa. And then Bates Gavissa completing the 6th row of the grid in the 2nd of the Teo Martin Motorsport cars. A frustrating season for Visser, with then Giuseppe Cipriani, the vastly experienced Italian driver, at the tail of the field. Cipriani, who was at one time a Formula 3 peer of Jacques Villeneuve in the Italian Formula 3 Championship, and just absolutely adores his racing. The grid being cleared, and then we will have final formation lap before the race gets underway. It will be 40 minutes plus 1 lap, and today is the non-pit stop race, so tomorrow's strategy comes into play. But in the meantime, today will be a straight race to the flag. So the grid gets cleared. We're about to get underway here at Silverstone. We're seconds away from the start of the 9th race of the Formula V8 3.5 Championship. Thank you very much for joining us, Silverstone, this afternoon as the heat haze shimmers off the car. It has really been the first week of summer in the UK this year. Absolutely magnificent conditions for motorsport. It is the SMP racing car of Mathieu Vaxivière in pole. You can pick him out. He's got the fluorescent helmet. The similar liveried car, Igor Yuruchov, shares the front row of the grid as they head off onto the green flag formation lap. And chance to recap the field. It's Vaxivière and Yuruchov sharing the front row. Then Roy Nassani and Tom Dillman, a strong second row. They'll look to challenge into Copse for the first time. row 3, Louis Delatraz and Aurélien Panis. Aurélien Panis really deserves more than he's had so far this year. And we've got René Binder and Pietro Fittipaldi. Fittipaldi looking for that breakthrough result. 8th place could be the catapult for it. Yukan Amaru and Alfonso Celis round out the top 10, clear of Vitor Baptista and Bates Gavissa. And then it will be Giuseppe Cipriani in the Durango kart to the tail of the field. Well, as you may have gathered, they are running on the old layout of the Silverstone circuit, i.e. that they're starting from the start-to-finish straight that heads into Copse Corner rather than the wing pit that's used for Formula 1. They're heading now down Hanger Straight in towards Stowe Corner. And talking to several of the drivers earlier on today, they were saying that this is probably going to be, particularly with the benefit of the DRS that they have available to them, one of the best overtaking opportunities. And you can get alongside into Stowe, it's reasonably forgiving on the exit. Then you come out into Vale and Club, another good overtaking opportunity, hard on the brakes to Vale, but watch that sausage curve. That can launch you into the air, certainly do some damage to the suspension before you swing around Club, past the pits, and then on towards Abbey and Farm. It's the newest section of this Silverstone Grand Prix circuit as they swoop through towards the tight and twisty section that then feeds them on to the Wellington Straight, and down the Wellington Straight into Brooklands. Another good overtaking opportunity, though possibly you could do it on the brakes as well in coming out of Farm into the arena section of the circuit. So there's every possibility for an excellent race today. And then down the Wellington Straight into Brooklands, they'll swing left through the fast left-hander at Brooklands. You can brake late, you can brake deep, and you can ask all you can of the Michelin tyres to hold on for you as you swing through Brooklands and then into the hairpin at Luffield that will complete the lap. So there is Aurélien Panis, his father Olivier, here today, supporting Aurélien's endeavours. Aurélien just one win so far this year. That came in race 2 at the Motorland Aragon. He's not been on the podium since the Hungaroring. He arguably had the pace to be Paul Ricard, but the luck just didn't go his way. Now as they complete the formation lap, we'll see if today is going to be his day. Mathieu Vaxivière rolls into pole position. Igor Yuruchov to the left-hand side of your picture. He's got the inside line for Copse, but the racing line here at Silverstone means that actually it is to start from the outside of the circuit, which gives you the best run into Copse Corner. It's the series principal, Jaime Alguersuari, watches on from the Arden pit box. The last couple of cars rolling position. We've got somebody in trouble. Can't quite make out who that is. It's possibly Pietro Fittipaldi, possibly Alfonso Celis, and that means they're probably going to be waved round for another formation lap here. We'll work out who's stalled in a moment. Yes, away they go now for that second formation lap. Oh, it's Louis Delatraz who has lost the engine. That's a disaster for Delatraz, who was really hoping for another strong performance to take points away from Tom Dillman at the top of the championship, but it's not going to happen today for Delatraz. He'll be wheeled off the grid and will have to start from the pit lane. And also massively disappointing for the Fortec team. This their home event for the season. And yet the engine has gone from Cara Delatraz. The marshals doing everything they can to give him a push start. I don't think that's going to happen, so he gets pushed into the gap in the pit wall and will then rejoin, hopefully, if they can get the car fired up from the pit lane. And there already the batteries and the equipment that the Fortec team need to see if they can get the Delatraz restarted. But it's often the case. It's very easy to lose the engine if you're not absolutely diligent at the end of the formation lap. And it's interesting the different strategies the drivers take on the formation lap, because they will work their way around, and some of them just like to clear their heads. Others like to work through a program, diligently warm the tyres. It's different approaches for different drivers. So to confirm, as a result of the extra formation lap, we've had 2 minutes lopped off the duration of the race. So it was 40 minutes. It's now going to be 38 minutes plus 1 lap. And there is your confirmation from race control. So the cars halfway through that second formation lap. It is Ben Evans and Keith Collentine with you this afternoon, and Well, already, Keith, a big talking point with Louis Delatraz having to start this race from the pit lane.
Yeah, complete disaster for Delatraz, obviously forcing this delayed start to the race. Winner of the last time out, of course, at Paul Ricard as well, and just when it seemed like Tom Dillman was going to have a bit of opposition in the championship, it's all gone a bit wrong for Louis Delatraz, so that really takes the pressure off Dillman a little bit as well. He's got Max Sivier and Oriev up front, and they've had very, very patchy seasons, haven't they? They've won races here and there, but Oriev's scoring has been a little bit inconsistent. That
said, this is the race that's going to take us to the halfway point of the season. So at the end of the day, it will be the 9th of the 18 races, and therefore those that have had a patchy start to the year, well, they've still got the time to make that up, because from Silverstone we head to the Red Bull Ring, then Monza, then Jerez, then the circuit to Barcelona, Catalonia. A lot of racing to go for the Formula V8 3.5 Series. Hopefully, though, we're about to get the first chunk of that underway this time around as the cars forming up on the grid once more. A little bit of weaving from Alfonso Cayley's getting the heat into his tyres. Pietro Fittipaldi moving across to the dirty side of the circuit at the last possible instant. The Lotus team watch on to the monitors. This is the last thing they'd have wanted at this point of the weekend. You just want to go racing. And hopefully we will now, because Giuseppe Cipriani comes to a halt. We're looking for the marshal with the green flag at the rear of the field. The revs are rising, and away we go. And it's a brilliant start from Roy Nissany, who jumps to the inside of Mathieu Vaxivière. So Yurutshov leads into turn 1. Nissany up to second, and then down to third for Vaxivière. Fourth is Tom Dillman. Fifth is Panis. Sixth is René Binder as they surge into Maggots and Beckett's for the first time. Fittipaldi busy trying to fend off Alfonso Cayley's a little bit lower down the order, but already Nissany trying to apply the pressure to Igor Yurutshov as Cayley's runs very wide down the hanger straight, and it is Yurutshov who leads.
Yeah, and very, very poor getaway for Mathieu Vaxivière then. Having done the hard work in qualifying, he's slipped back into the pack. He's now got Tom Dillman breathing down his neck. So really, that's another point in favour of Tom Dillman in this race. It all seems set up in his favour at the moment. But Igor Oriev once again finds himself up at the sharp end. And if there's one thing we've learned about that driver this year, Ben, is boy, can he defend. He knows how to make that car wide.
But when he won in Paul Ricard, of course, he made a couple of mistakes that demoted him from the lead, and that's what Roy Nissany is going to be hoping for, because Nissany spent most of race 1 in Paul Ricard examining the rear wing of Igor Yurutshev's car, and he's going to be doing much the same, at least in the early stage of this race. Meanwhile, Mathieu Vaxivière, we heard him saying in the interview post-qualifying, they've done some things set up with the car this weekend. They think it's going to be a more stable and consistent package throughout the course of the race, and he's certainly hoping that's going to be the case. There's Pietro Fittipaldi a little bit lower down the order.
We've got an attack up at the front, I think. That looks like Oriev defending very hard from Nissany. Sure enough, Oriev all the way across. And this is what we said, Ben. He can defend, but he does slip up sometimes.
Yeah, you can defend into Brooklands if you get across, if you're brave enough on the brakes. And these cars have got fantastic levels of downforce. The Michelin tyre does normally give you a lot of grip. But what we have seen a couple of times this year, if you ask too much of it on the first lap of the race, it does start to bite. And Yurutshov will have to be mindful of that. And now, are we going to see an ultra-brave one here from Nissany? He was right underneath the gearbox of Yurutshov as they came through Copse on towards Maggots and Beckett's. The fastest turns on the circuit, and Nissany is right there. This is brilliant racing in the early stages as they swing through Beckett's out of Chapel Curve, down the hanger straight, and surely Nissany's going to have a run.
He looked like he had a really good run. It takes huge commitment to follow that close through the super fast Maggots and Beckett's corners. Oriev just able to pull out a little bit. I wonder if he perhaps got on the DRS button as they came onto the hanger straight because he saw how close Nissany was.
Well, there's still a long way to go. Nissany, he only needs to lead 1 metre of the race, and that's the last one. As meanwhile, René Binder looks to the inside of Aurélien Panis into Vale. Nicely done from Binder. He squeezes out Panis. We have seen time and time again comings together as they swing from Vale into Club, but not on that occasion. And of course, as Yurutshov and Nissany battle, Mathieu Vaxivière lurking with intent in third.
Well, that pace by Binder and of course Nissany up front really does underline that Lotus have got a good setup on their car this weekend. They look really quick in practice yesterday. Nissany was leading the way, but Mathieu Vaxivière, having lost that lead, is certainly not content to just stay back in third position. He's got some pace underneath him as well, and we're cooking up a really nice three-way fight for the lead now here.
And this is really the second weekend in succession as well for Lotus. They've had a great package underneath them, because we saw in Paul Ricard that both Binder and Nissany had super race pace, but now Vaxivière asking all the questions, and Nissany, who has a slight wobble through Luffield in the black Lotus car. It is the blue-nosed XMP racing car. There he is, Mathieu Vaxivière, who pursues Nassani as they swing out of Woodcote. Here is a replay, that move from René Binder.
Yeah, nice classic club overtaking move. He carried a bit more speed through Stowe corner and he was pretty firm with Aurélien Panis as they got to the apex of the corner, making sure there was no way for the Arden driver to come back at him.
It's also smart driving from Aurélien Panis not to try and dispute it, interlock wheels and catapult each other from the race. Now here in 4th place is the championship leader, Tom Dillman. He only had a 4th and 6th place finish in Paul Ricard and never really looked like he was going to be on the podium. He's going to be aided and abetted somewhat by the fact that Louis Delatraz is currently in 12th place, 11 seconds off the lead, so he should grow his championship advantage, but he just doesn't want to get into this pattern of fighting a rearguard action for the final 10 races of the year.
Indeed, and Delatraz stuck down in 12th place. Really, his only hopes of salvaging much from this race is going to be if the safety car makes an appearance. I'm trying to keep an eye at him at the back of the field, but no sign of him just yet. Settling down a little bit at the front, Orojev, having had that early wobble, has got a little bit of a margin over Roynestine, but it's not very much. But now we've got some action for 3rd place. Perhaps a problem for Vaxivière because he's suddenly got Dillman trying to get the cutback as they come through Village and the Loop and through Aintree back onto the Wellington Straight.
And he's going to have a good run here, Tom Dillman. He forces Mathieu Vaxivière to the inside line. The two Frenchmen going wheel to wheel, and Dillman looks to swoop to the outside at Brooklands. But that's well positioned from Vaxivière as he lets the car run out wide. It gives him the inside line for Luffield. Tom Dillman says, fair enough, I'll challenge to the outside, and they run side by side into Woodcote. They remain side by side, and Tom Dillman only now does he get out of the move. He's still trying to fight this with Vaxivière, and now he switches back, looks the inside at Copse. He can't quite get the switch back.
Wow, it's really, really hard to make a pass work around there on the outside, but didn't he get super close to doing it? It looks to me as though Vaxivière is running a little bit less rear wing compared to Tom Dillman. I think it's just an optical illusion from the fact that Dillman's got a white rear wing and Vaxivière's got a black one, but it does look as though maybe Vaxivière's not working those rears quite as hard at this point.
But look at the gap that's opened up as Vaxivière's defended from Nissani. Suddenly it's gone out to almost 3 seconds from 2nd to 3rd, and for Tom Dillman that really heightens the challenge. Can he clear Vaxivière? Can he chase down the race leaders? And here they are, because Yurudshov, he is the Thierry Boutsen of this championship. He can never win a race dominantly. He always has to have somebody snapping at his heels, making it difficult for him. And such is the case once more as they turn into Abbey. Then we've got this 3-way scrap for 3rd. And I say it's 3-way because René Binder is there lurking with intent. And really, Aurélien Panis, Pietro Fittipaldi, Yukan Amaru and Vitor Baptiste are all the way down to 9th place. Have not exactly been dropped by this group.
Oh, and Delatraz, actually having started from the pits, has managed to work his way up into the top 10, so he's on course for at least a point. So it's going to be a day of damage limitation for him at the moment, but at least he's getting in there. Vaxivier's bought himself a little bit more time over Tom Dillman, and Dillman's going to have to keep an eye on those mirrors because, as we were saying earlier on, the Lotus Run cars really do look quick as we take a quick look at Aurélien Panis.
And something that's been really wonderful to watch in the championship this year, Keith, has been the drivers are risking different setups. And over the course of the 40-minute, today 38-minute plus a lap race, what they do with setup really makes a difference in the way that the car either goes away from them or comes back to them. It shows why this championship is the last stepping stone towards Formula One, because everything you do to the car has a massive bearing on how your race unfolds.
Yeah, we've seen that to great effect in quite a few of the races so far this year, particularly that win by Orojev at Spa-Francorchamps, where he took a bit of a risk on an alternative setup and managed to get his car into the lead and just hung on for grim death despite constantly locking up his wheels and ending with a very, very tatty looking front tyre. No sign as yet of quite the same degree of desperation from Orojev, but behind him, Roy Nassani has got well over half an hour to keep grinding at him. Oh, and Tom Dillman having to get defensive.
And now Dillman has to defend into Vale as Binder looks to the outside. Now, René Binder, can he just draw alongside? No, he can't. Tom Dillman, far too experienced at this level to leave that door wide open as we wait for them to come out of club. Now, what's really interesting for me, Keith, is we're seeing all the drivers really struggling to be consistent lap upon lap in the early stage of this race. We're seeing lots of gaps suddenly opening up just on the basis of one or two small errors.
Indeed, well, the gaps between the front runners really yo-yoing at the moment as well. And we saw even though Dillman managed to close the door on Binder, he got a massive armful of opposite lock on the inside of Club Corner, and so he hasn't shaken off Binder just yet. Really, you have to say, you know, those two Lotus cars, looking super quick at the moment, and here is the battle for first place. It's hard to know whether to keep an eye on a battle for the lead or the battle involving the championship leader at the moment, because they're both pretty good. But remember, this race weekend last year was where we saw that superb scrap between Mathieu Vaxivière and Oliver Rowland. These cars and this Silverstone track really do lend themselves to superb racing.
So about 1/4 race distance, it is Igor Yerudshov who leads the way from Roy Nissany. Mathieu Vaxivière is third. The bright orange car turning into tops now of Tom Dillman. He's in fourth. René Binder in fifth. Then it's Aurélien Pani sixth. Pietro Fittipaldi seventh. Yuka Namaru in eighth. From Vitor Baptista and Louis Delatraz, who completes the top 10. Alfonso Calis Jr. having a bit of a wretched day. He's actually failed to come through at the end of the last lap, so I don't know whether or not he's come into the pit lane, because he comes past our commentary position, as now Binder's got the run on Tom Dillman, and René Binder draws alongside Tom Dillman. You can go around outside Stowe, as does René Binder. Beautifully executed move from the Austrian driver, and there was nothing Dillman could do. He covered the inside line, and it's not been a great lap for the AVF team. Dillman loses the place, and here is the confirmation of Alfonso Calis into the pits.
It looked as though they're digging into the side pods of Calis' car, so perhaps he's picked up a bit of debris or something like that, and they're perhaps having to clear it out the side pods. But great move by Binder. We saw earlier on what a great run his teammate had through the Maggots and Beckett's complex, despite being in the dirty air of the car in front. Again, suggesting that their cars can run really well in the slipstream of other cars. He got off Chapel Curve. He had the DRS. We could see that snapping open again when he got to the braking zone for Stowe, and that really did make it a solid pass for him. So that moves Dillman down into fifth position. So despite Delatraz's problems, Dillman at the moment not able to capitalise, as our battle at the front is closing up again.
I think the only thing that could give Dillman comfort at the moment, vis-a-vis the progress of Louis Delatraz, is that Delatraz is 4.5 seconds back from Vitor Baptista, so he's got a fair amount of time to make up before he can start gaining places once more. Pietro Fittipaldi accelerating through to complete his 6th lap of the race, and Pietro currently in 7th, and therefore if he stays there he'll match his best result of the season to date. And this is what we saw a little bit with Tom Dillman and Paul Ricard, isn't it? That the car just didn't seem to have it quite hooked up to deliver the race pace.
It is surprising. He was so strong in those opening few race weekends of the year. And Paul Ricard, obviously, we hypothesised that because, surprisingly enough, it was a track he hadn't actually run on the full configuration of before, that perhaps it was just a familiarity thing. But Dillman knows Silverstone really, really well, and he and the AVF team clearly haven't quite cracked the setup here. And interesting also to note that René Binder, having overtaken Tom Dillman, took half a second out of third place Mathieu Vaxivière the last time by, so we could be about to see that battle closing up as well.
He's got quite a way to close though, hasn't he? 5.3 seconds, and so that is, oh no, Binder 2.3 seconds back from Vaxivière. Vaxivière 5.3 seconds back for the fight for the lead. Now, what this means from a tactical dimension is that Roy Nissany, can see that Igor Yerudchov's not running away from him, and that means that Nissany can measure his pace. Doesn't need to get too close to Yerudshov, doesn't need to get into the turbulent air, doesn't need to grain the Michelin tires in a do-or-die move to gain the place. He knows that he's not going to have to fight a rearguard action, and therefore it really puts the imperative onto Igor Yerudshov to try and break the toe from Roy Nissany. And really, once he's sort of 1 second, 1.1 seconds clear, that's going to be much harder for Nissany to chase down. But as they come through, the gap between the pair of them, we have got the timing glitch, which doesn't tell us what it's going to be. 6.6 per second, it eventually charts through at, and so it did open up a little bit on that last lap. But my speculation, Keith, would be that's probably Nissany not wanting to be in the turbulent air rather than Yerudshov really pulling clear.
Yeah, it's sensible sometimes for them to play the waiting game. What also that did illustrate really well the last time they came by, and we'll see it again if we have a head-on shot, is just how compact Igor Yerudshov is and how low he's able to sit in the car. And you can see the flow into the airbox for his engine is completely unobstructed by his helmet. And you know, every last little bit of horsepower that you can get out of these engines when you're running in a spec championship can be really, really helpful. And for Orogchev, you know, just the benefit of that being that little bit shorter than your rivals and being able to sit lower in the cockpit, there's a great illustration of it. But it's clearly not impeding Nissany too greatly at the moment, because once again, he is beginning to close in on Orozhev, and Orozhev locks up and runs a little bit deep at Village. This could hand Nissany an opportunity as they come round to the Wellington Straight.
The problem is, if you make a mistake at Village, the problem if you're Roy Nissany, that is, the mistake at into Village, if you can hook it up for the loop, doesn't really play into the opportunity down the Wellington Straight. And that is the case on this occasion. That's Yurudshov. Darts across, and Nissany goes for it very late. Tries to pull the trigger, and Yurudshov runs wide. And now the Russian's going to have to keep this hooked up through Luffield. Nissany, unlike Tom Dillman, gets out of the move nice and early. Instead, he looks to get the exit.
Oh, how I was willing Roy Nissany on to immediately prove you wrong there, Ben, but he may still yet, because he's getting a lot. Oh, it's so close to the wall.
Very, very close, as he was squeezed there, Roy Nissany. And Nissany, though, right behind Yurudshov, they come out of Copse on towards Maggots and Beckett's. Had visions there of that awful Form 3 accident for Brian Smith back in the mid-90s when he got that manoeuvre slightly misjudged, as they then swing through Chapel Curve onto the Hanger Straight, and Nissany, just as we were saying that he was able to take it easy, that mistake from Yurudshov is now really allowing him to turn up the heat once more, but he's not close enough to challenge into Stowe.
And once again, Ben makes a vintage Formula 3 reference, which is going to have me reaching for a certain popular video sharing website once we're finished with this commentary. But Roy Nissany closing right up again on Igor Orozhev in the braking zones, and we're starting to see that sort of trademark, very scrappy Igor Orozhev defence happening, and something's got to give here, because Nissany isn't going anywhere other than straight back onto the rear of that Arden run car. And we've seen again, in the past from Orozhev, he does tend to make these little mistakes under pressure, and Nissany, after so many second places this year, will know he's got a chance to win.
Here's another look at it. Nissany goes for it, and that was a little, well, it was very hard to see from that angle actually how late Yurudshov chopped across and covered it, so I wouldn't want to call that really one way or another, as now Nissany once more in pursuit of Igor Yurudshov down the Wellington Straight, and we are just about approaching half race distance, and once more this championship throws up another brilliant race in the 2016 season. Every race we've had to date has been utterly captivating, and this is another brilliant head-to-head fight at the front of the field.
The battle behind them between Vaxivière and Binder is only very slowly closing up, and the last time by, Binder took a few tenths out of Vaxivière's advantage. And as they come around to start the next lap again, he's a couple more tenths to the good. It doesn't immediately scream that he's going to be able to stick an overtaking move on him, though. The best of the action definitely happening up at the Shark End. Now, what's going on with Tom Dillman? He's now got Aurélien Panis really starting to fill his mirrors. Panis, obviously the teammate of our race leader. And Panis had a pretty good start to the season. He had a win at Motorland Aragon, and generally sort of operating, I think, a bit higher than the level we've been used to seeing him at. It would be a bit of a surprise if he was able to stick a pass on Tom Dillman, but he's within half a second.
And again, it's interesting. I think the Arden team, who have, not unsurprisingly, been their home round, absolutely nailed the setup for this week and this weekend as well. And I would suggest that 6th place, maybe in the natural order of things, given the respective strengths of the cars, is possibly a little bit out of position for Aurélien Panis. Meanwhile, to bring you up to speed with Louis Delatraz, now this could be interesting, because Louis Delatraz is now just within 2 seconds of Vitor Baptista, so he's taken 3 seconds out of Baptista over the last 4 laps in their fight over 9th and 10th place. It's not quite come together yet, but every point that Delatraz can gain in a race where Tom Dillman is slipping backward through the field is potentially very important. There's Gary Horner watching the progress of his cars from the Arden pit wall. And what do you say to Igor Yurudshov at a time like this? Probably nothing at all. He knows exactly where Roy Nissany is. He just wants to know how soon the checker flag is coming out.
Yeah, this is definitely one of those leave me alone on the radios. I can see exactly how close he is. He's absolutely filling my mirrors, and he's just got to try to cling on for 20 minutes plus another lap. And as we keep an eye on Aurélien Panis trying to get closer to Tom Dillman, behind him Pietro Fittipaldi holding 7th position. That seems to have been the position I've seen Pietro Fittipaldi in most races so far this year. He's holding pretty much to form and not quite able to get on terms with the other one. And his Fortec teammate Louis Delatraz, as you say, making some inroads, though you've got to say, looking at his pace, even when he's not been in traffic, it's not sort of screamed out that he's necessarily got the car underneath him or had the car underneath him that might have been able to win this race, even if he had been able to start from where he qualified.
Well, René Binder really coming on to terms with Mathieu Vaxivière now. That gap is down to fractionally over a second, which is what we want to be seeing. as running very wide out of Stowe, both Tom Dillman and indeed Ranian Panis. The near contact between Yerudshov and Nasani, we have been told by race control, there'll be no further action from it. It certainly, I think the camera angle possibly made it look a little bit closer than it really was. And they're just starting to pair up now, certainly in the top 6 positions. Then it's beginning to just disperse a little bit further back, and this time it's Nasani. Has a huge wiggle coming out of the loop. Somewhat over-enthusiastic with the right foot, one would suggest. As the car bucks and weaves.
Yeah, and boy, did that really cost him. He's lost several car lengths to Orogyev with just that one little slip up. Oh, so easy to do, particularly in that curved acceleration zone when the car's already got the weight over on one side, just edging a little bit too wide, and that has given Orogyev some very, very grateful breathing space.
But in terms of silver linings for Roy Nasani, he was at risk of being mesmerised by what Igor Yerudshov was doing, because sometimes when you're following the car in front for so long, even though you're quicker, you start to copy that other driver's traits. You start to, when they turn in, accelerate, and you don't get the opportunity to take a step back, think strategically, think tactically. And now Nasani is going to have to drive at his own pace for a couple of laps to see if he can come back to Yerudshov. And I think for me, Keith, if Nasani can close that gap down in the next 3 or 4 tours of the circuit, then we know Nasani is going to be nicely poised to challenge for the win late on.
Yeah, we have seen that before, haven't we? I mean, drivers, like you say, if they get tucked up behind the rear wing of the driver they're attacking for too long, they do get a bit stuck there, as we see emerging from the pits. Alfonso Celis, after his problems earlier on, the opportunity to sort of catch that gap back in, it sort of renews the attack, and it places more psychological pressure on the leading driver, because obviously for a moment they've got some breathing space, but then suddenly here comes the car again. It reaffirms that the car behind is quicker and that they're going to have to dig a little bit deeper and find some more. But that is the graphic at the bottom shows you what that mistake did to the gap between Igor Orogyev and Roy Nasani. But on this lap, Nasani is already quickest, does the quickest time of the race so far through the first sector, so he's definitely got the speed. He's quicker again than Orogyev in sector 2 as well. So as you say, Ben, Nasani immediately cutting back into Orogyev's advantage.
And not using his DRS either to chase that gap down artificially along the Wellington Straight, certainly. And what is so impressive with the way that Lotus car is working is the high-speed direction changes. It is absolutely glued to the road. Meanwhile, René Binder has got onto terms with Mathieu Vaxivière. Although the cars look near identical, the fluorescent yellow helmet tells you it's Vaxivière. He's in 3rd place and doggedly defending from Nasani's Lotus teammate René Binder in 4th. Now, this could be good news for Tom Dillman. If they start fighting, it might allow Dillman to close up. It might allow Panis to get part of it. Oh, dear, and that is the engine cover on Kalis's car making a bid for freedom down the Wellington Straight. Now, it was flapping loose and gives a wave to the crowd coming out of the loop, and that's very unfortunate. Suggests possibly one of the screw fastenings had just come loose on that outlap.
And quite a little bit of debris falling onto the Wellington Straight. Louis Delatraz will be hoping safety car, and Mathieu Vaxivière will be worrying about René Binder bearing down on him.
And Binder's going to go for the move. He pulls out late, looks to the inside of Vaxivière into Stowe. Vaxivière runs out wide, but that will allow him to cover on the way into Vale. I was going to say also for Kalis, his tyre almost appeared to have been cut as well by that flailing debris, as the fight for 3rd really coming alive. And what's so nice here about Silverstone and the Grand Prix circuit, Keith, is because there are so many potential overtaking opportunities, a driver like Binder can wind up for a move, doesn't work, he can regroup, try again a few laps later, whereas other circuits, you might just get one chance of racing, you have to make it stick.
Yeah, exactly. As we were saying before, it's partly to do, I think, with the width of the circuit. Is the drivers don't necessarily have to follow right in the wheel tracks of the car in front, and you can see Binder doing this really, really well. Occasionally following a slightly different line through the corners to Mathieu Vaxivière, kind of like you see with Indy cars when they do their oval racing. They prefer to run in the undisturbed air in the long, quick corners. Vaxivière not quite having to defend there. A few little bits of debris on the Wellington Straight there. I can't see them throwing a safety car for that, though, which, as we're saying, is very much what Louis Delatraz would have liked. But he's just going to have to be content, and he's still down in 10th position and not really closing on Vitor Baptista at the moment. In fact, dropping back over half a second quicker, as we see Celis, predictably enough, is getting the meatball flag.
Yeah, the black and orange flag, which means the scrutineers have spotted that there's something mechanically wrong with the car, and don't think that's going to be one of the more difficult questions in the scrutineering exam for this year. And so Kalis has got to come into the pits and get a new engine cover rear fix. Now, René Binder closing up onto the tail of Mathieu Vaxivière. He's lining up for another move here. Vaxivière consults the mirrors, and that was funny to see Vaxiviere's head moving one side to the other, trying to keep track of René Binder. And of course, Stowe's one of the corners they want to make the move, because they'd have seen that archive video of the move from Nigel Mansell on Nelson Piquet at the end of the 1987 British Grand Prix. And it looked for moments as if Binder was going to sell the dummy.
Yeah, I don't need to look that one up. What Vaxivière will also have been able to see, though, from his rearview mirrors, and why that was a particularly good piece of driving by him, was that Binder was using his DRS to get a bit closer there, and Vaxivière didn't feel the need to pull offline and potentially compromise his run through Stowe.
And now what René Binder is also starting to see is that Tom Dillman is appreciably closer, because for reference, last time around it was a 1 minute 45.8 from Mathieu Vaxivière as he was defending from René Binder. It meant that Tom Dillman closed exactly half a second on Vaxivière on that last lap, and he might well have gained something of a similar magnitude this time through. It means that Binder is looking for the move on Vaxivière into Brooklands. He can't do it, and just wonder, again, Vaxivière, Keith, we've seen him struggling with tyre wear on occasion this year. He was asking a lot of the car into Brooklands and then on to Luffield on that occasion.
Yeah, he was. And the other interesting thing for me in this race was Vaxivière was so confident after qualifying. They put a new engine into his car after the problems they had at Paul Ricard. But as yet, it doesn't seem to have really sort of helped him pull a little bit further ahead, and it does rather suggest that, as you say, the problems he's been having is a little bit more setup based. And another problem that the SMP team will have this weekend is they've not got a second car to side-by-side test setup changes with, which will have made things a little bit less productive for them during practice, as again Binder tries to follow closely onto the hanger straight, not perhaps quite close enough this time by.
He just mistimed that. He got a little bit too close to Vaxivière just before they came to the end of the Beckett's complex, as Panis running out very wide on the exit of Stowe. This is the fight for lead of the race. We're approaching three-quarters race distance. Igor Yuruchov, your race leader, from Roy Nassani. Then we've got that fight for third with Vaxivière and Binder that we were just following. And Roy Nassani, having taken a couple of laps to regather himself, has exactly halved Yuruchov's advantage, and more than that as they come through the loop. And that was very interesting, because Yuruchov was almost at crawling pace midway through the loop. It suggested that he was just trying to keep Nassani at bay. Vaxivière a little bit quicker and slithers out wide as a result. And René Binder, if he uses the DRS here, could be in with a shot. And Mathieu Vaxivière down the Wellington straight. The pair of them run nose tail. Vaxivière knows he's coming. He moves to the inside line. Which side does Binder go? He jinks outside. So does Vaxivière. The debris still on the circuit may be aiding Vaxivière on that occasion. It just took away the option for Binder to dart to the inside line. It also gave Vaxivière a legitimate reason to move back across to cover the outside.
And of course here, as in most single-seater championships, the usual rule applies that once you pull off line to defend your position, if you move back towards it, you have to leave a one-car width for the other car. Fortunately for Vaxivière, Binder wasn't catching him quite quickly enough to be able to take full advantage of that, but he really is bearing down on him. Now this is where we've seen the Lotus Run cars really able to stay super close to cars in front of them. So they come around the back and change for the lead.
Nassani jumps to the inside. They touch! Contact through Stowe. The race leaders take themselves off, and Nassani was almost through. He just interlocked wheels with Igor Yuruchov. I suspect Yuruchov's damaged his suspension. Nassani limps back onto the track. There is Yuruchov, and here comes Mathieu Vaxivière, who can't believe what he sees. Yuruchov definitely is ailing, but he moves across, covers line. Dillman part of this as well. As Yuruchov's race fear is run, he rejoins right in the path of Vaxivière, who takes last-ditch evasive action. Binder also is able to jink around. Now Nassani would appear to be undamaged just at the moment. Yuruchov, oh dear me, that car, I think he wants to keep going, but it looks as if maybe just one of the suspension wishbones could be slightly out of line. And now he does rejoin the track, having lost all that ground. Well, that a huge talking point, Keith. And well, we'll I'm sure see the incident in a moment's time, but suddenly the race turned on its head.
Some lurid stuff from Orachev there. About 3 hide behind the sofa moments in the space of about 20 seconds. But it certainly did look as though Nassani had a good run at him, but I'm very interested to see a couple of replays of that one, and sure enough, once again, the stewards are investigating cars 4 and 7. Let's take a look at this again.
So Yurudchov covers the inside line, then gives the space to Nisani. Nisani jumps alongside now. Stowe tightens. That's why Nisani, relatively speaking, slows down. And they just maybe didn't quite give each other enough room. I'm not sure that Igor Yurudchov was quite aware that Nisani was as far alongside as he was.
But he would have no reason to say that he didn't know Nisani was there, because he'd already tried to defend the corner and then gone back towards the racing line. So definitely a collision that could have been avoided. But the surprising thing for me there was, I mean, they had, first of all, enough of a gap over the chasing cars to be able to stay ahead of them. But I wonder if Nisani will have any lingering ill effect between that fairly hefty contact between the pair of them, as he is leading the race, potentially on course for his first victory in this category, but now has Vaxivier less than 2 seconds behind him.
And here's another look at when it all went very wrong into Abbey as well for Yurudchov, and something clearly not quite working for him as he ran wide. Now Nisani is back up to speed and he's pulling clear from Vaxivier as well. They lost 10 seconds on that last lap, so they're about 12 seconds clear at the point at which they tangled. Tom Dillman couldn't capitalise from it. The driver who's probably lost out the most is actually René Binder, because Vaxivier was able to clear Yurudchov a little bit more smoothly, and it, as a result, has just shuffled Binder back, as now Panis gets the run, coming out the loop onto Tom Dillman. Can he challenge down the Wellington Straight?
He's trying to get a little bit closer behind him, as we can still see the stricken part of Chelis's AVF bodywork, supplying some extra advertising for them. And it is all pretty much status quo between them at the moment. Orojev, actually, despite that contact, is still running. He's slipped down into 7th position, our former race leader.
Oh, it's not status quo for Yurudchov. He's going down, isn't he? As just running very wide, and across the gravel trap was Aurélien Panis, but he carries so much speed through that wide line at Luffields. And again, into that stage of the race, Tom Dillman just struggling in the bright orange car.
And a huge lap by Roy Nisani. The first lap after they made that contact, he took over 2 seconds off Mathieu Vaxivier, his personal best lap of the race.
Fastest lap of the race.
Absolutely stunning stuff.
And it just shows that Nisani had that potential. We saw the way he was coming towards Yurudchov, that he got a bit more pace underneath him. Now, for Roy Nisani, if he were to win this afternoon, I make it that he would be his first victory going back to the 2012 ADAC Formel Master season. So first victory for several seasons for Roy Nisani, as Vaxivier navigates Vale, comes out of club. Now, I guess for Vaxivier, Keith, it's a case of he can see Nisani's gone, he's going to be back to keeping Binder behind him.
And it is game over for number 7, Igor Orojev, after that contact. They appear to have pulled him in. Maybe they're concerned about whatever damage there may have been on that car. Not really a great surprise to see, because he was heading off the track left, right and centre. That
was the body language of a very, very disappointed and frustrated driver, because on a day where Tom Dillman's struggling, Yurudchov, we've seen this a couple of times this year, he's been winning races, he's retired from races, he could have taken a good number of points out of Dillman.
This probably would have been the result that would have put him back into contention for the championship. He would have been the first driver up onto 3 wins. But it's just not come together one way or another for him. We saw him make that very costly mistake in the opening round of the championship when he was leading away from pole position. And really from that point onwards, you know, he's had these 2 wins, but really very little in the way of other results to speak of. And it does ram home the point that to be successful in a championship like this, where there's so many points available for the top places, you've got to be consistent as well as fast.
Yeah, for Vaxivier, however, this would be a race that potentially could reignite his championship charge. For René Binder and Roy Nisani, if the Lotus team continue to keep the car working as well as this into the following events, and indeed into tomorrow's qualifying session, then that could be something. Now, we've got just under 6 minutes plus a lap to go, and René Binder is really coming at Mathieu Vaxivier. We follow Binder's teammate Roy Nisani through Stowe.
I was just taking a quick check on the timing screen to see where Louis Delatraz, and he's actually remained in 10th position, because I think he's lost a place to Beitske-Visser, so things persisting to not come right for the driver, who should have started from 5th position in the grid. But turning our attention back to this battle, Lotus, I think, will be really fancying a shot at a 1-2 finish here, because Binder is looking pretty racy behind Vaxivier at the moment.
But so is Tom Dillman. Tom Dillman is suddenly coming back towards René Binder, and we have seen this time and time again as the race has unfolded. Now, what was absolutely fascinating a couple of moments ago was watching René Binder through Copse Corner, because the front wheel on the car was almost juddering in the turbulent air behind Mathieu Vaxivière because of the downforce loads he's putting on the car. He's just got such confidence through the high-speed corners.
And that is what you need at Silverstone, because you have a lot of high-speed corners leading onto straights. If you can't follow another car close behind well, you're not going to be able to stick a pass on them. They've spread out a little bit at the moment, and Aurélien Panis now running in 5th position. Is he going to be able to join this sort of growing multi-way battle for 2nd position? He is just over a second behind Tom Dillman at the moment, so not really within striking range. But Roy Nissany, got to be really impressed at the way he's pulled that lead back out again after that really, dramatic moment. And it's not just, the fact that he would have had a bit of contact. It's also the fact that you lose control of the car. It's a moment of drama. Your heart rate goes up. You're not quite panicking, but you've had that sort of moment to then regain your focus and start banging out the quickest laps, and to do it right away, that really does indicate top-level driving.
Absolute composure as well. Now, of this fight for second, the fastest driver last time round was the bright orange AVF car of Tom Dillman. And Dillman, he was a 10th of a second quicker than René Binder. Binder gives away 0.004 of a second to Mathieu Vaxivière through Sector 1. Don't think that's going to really concern either of them as they pick their way through Vale and then out of club. They just use the curbs, and again Dillman is closer. Vaxivière pulling clear of Binder. Just makes me hypothesise, has René Binder had the best of his Michelin tires and is from here on into the flag possibly just going to be a case of damage limitation?
It is starting to look a little bit that way in this scrap for 2nd position, as Roy Nissany just continues to build that lead. And I think Dillman there being quite tentative with the throttle as he came through the slowest, or one of the slowest corners on the track. And again, it all points to, particularly in this heat, the tyres starting to have given their best. It really was warming up down on the grid before the race. We've got a bit of cloud cover now, which will probably serve to depress the track temperatures a little bit, but these drivers really have been leaning on it and going absolutely flat out from the beginning.
As anybody who's ever been to Silverstone often knows, it only has 2 weathers, which is either boiling hot and sunburn territory, or absolutely freezing. It's never a pleasant temperature at Silverstone. It's always an extreme, one or the other. And today it's been pretty hot. The sun was really beating down earlier on as Binder tries to get through Beckett's. And that was interesting there for René Binder, because he just couldn't make the apex through Beckett's, and that suggests again that he's just starting to get some understeer, following that closely to Vaxivière.
Yeah, it's the classic problem in these high-speed corners. And I think also the other point at this stage in the race, actually, as we see Vaxivière using his DRS, I was about to hypothesise how many of these drivers actually had any presses of their DRS buttons left, because at one point or another, they've all been trying to overtake one of their rivals, and that's when the restraint with the DRS button starts to go. You see the opportunity to overtake a driver, so you jump on the DRS button to try and get it done. Vaxivière has obviously been a little bit more disciplined and is just using it to give himself a comfortable buffer in these final minutes.
It's probably worth explaining quickly how the DRS in this championship differs as well to Formula 1, because it's much more at the driver's discretion and you can use it in a defensive mode. Yeah,
which I really like, actually. They basically say to the drivers you can use it a set number of times per race. It varies from race to race. And that means, as you say, they can use it to try to attack, they can use it to try to defend the position. It plays a really important role in the mandatory pit stop races. We'll talk about that tomorrow, when obviously the drivers want to nail a really, really quick outlap or an in-lap to try and jump in front of a rival. But Vaxivière, I think, has strategically used his very, very well. And it's basically the same as the push to pass in IndyCar. The drivers who can restrain themselves and save it for the final phases of the races are often the ones who find themselves sitting comfortably.
And that's why you see some of the drivers from this championship who don't move into Formula 1 moving across to top World Endurance Championship seats, because it teaches them that strategy, it teaches them consistency over a stint, and it's really why this is the University of Motorsport. Well, we're into the penultimate lap of what has been a very dramatic race of the Formula V8 3.5 season here at Silverstone. It's the race that takes us to the halfway point of the championship. Now, championship leader Tom Dillman will, I think, be really quite glad with 4th place. He's not had the quickest car underneath him. He's stayed out of trouble, and he's going to get more points. Yeah, it's damage limitation all the way for Tom Dillman in this race. And the driver who had that string of podium finishes in the opening 6 races of the year, he's going to be off the podium again in this one unless something dramatic happens. And of course, in terms of the championship, Louis Delatraz, second in the standings, will finish behind him in 10th. Aurélien Panis third in the stands, will finish behind him in fifth. So Tom Dillman, he's actually taking points out of the two drivers closest to him in the title fight. I think surely, though, the worry is now going to be the progress of René Binder and Roy Nissany.
Especially if Lotus continue to turn up at race weekends with cars quite as quick as they have been doing, because as we said before, they were, and a bit of a lock-up for Vaxivière, they were very competitive at Paul Ricard as well. On the strength of this result, you have to fancy their chances tomorrow. The weather forecasters tell us the conditions are going to be much the same, so stock up on sun cream and bottled water if you're heading down here, because it really is quite hot here today. But Roy Nissany is on his way round now to begin what I believe is going to be the final lap of the race, and he has got a very healthy lead of almost 6.5 seconds. He's rebuilt half of the advantage that he had before that tangle with Igor Orojev, which is really quite remarkable.
Well, Roy Nissany has been arguably the most improved driver in the championship this year as the season has unfolded. It was a sticky start to the season. He was on the podium in race 2 at the Hungaroring. He had a pretty wretched weekend in Spa, not really through fault of his own, but then bounced back brilliantly with 2 second places in Paul Ricard, and he's continued that form on here into Silverstone. We're still watching the fight for second place, as Mathieu Vaxivière will be hoping the next 5 or so kilometres go by in the blink of an eye, particularly as Binder has shaken off Dillman. It does release René Binder here if he can get onto terms with Vaxivière for one final roll of the dice. But here is our race leader, Roy Nissany, through Stowe for the last time.
Well, he has been threatening to do this for quite a few races. He was super combative in the races at Paul Ricard, and he might have won that second one had it not been for some really inspired lapping by Louis Delatraz in between the pit stops. But as you say, Nissany really getting quite some consistency behind him, and if he can continue to produce results like this, we will probably have to start talking about him as well in terms of being a potential championship contender.
Roy Nissany heads into the loop for the last time of asking. It has not been all his own way. He had that scrap with Igor Yurychov. They tangled, Yurychov retired, Nissany recovered, rebuilt his buffer, and he's now just got a couple of corners to go down through the heat haze along the Wellington Straight. Just has to pick his braking point for Brooklands. You can see behind there was no change in the order. Vaxivière had broken clear of Binder. So out of Brooklands into Luffield. It's been a long time since Roy Nissany last stood on the top step of a rostrum, but he has driven absolutely magnificently this afternoon at Silverstone. He heads through Woodcote, the checkered flag goes out, and Roy Nissany wins the 9th round of the Formula V8 3.5 Championship for 2016. He celebrates, as do the Lotus crew, because they have 2 cars on the rostrum, with René Binder finishing in 3rd behind Mathieu Vaxivière.
Oh, tremendous stuff for Roy Nissany, and completely deserved, because he was legitimately down the inside of Igor Orojev in that attempted overtaking move for the lead, which ended up with the pair of them tangling. And I remain massively impressed by the level of composure he displayed in pulling out that lead again. Great stuff from him. Vaxivière is, of course, going to be disappointed because he started this one from pole position, and he was so close to winning last year when he had that scrap with Oliver Rowland, but he's going to have to settle for second place once again. René Binder putting both the Lotus team's cars onto the podium, so superb stuff for him. And Tom Dillman, we've already mentioned earlier, doing what he needed to do to advance his position in the championship as well as possible.
Season's best for Pietro Fittipaldi in 6th place behind Aurélien Panis in 5th. Yu Kanemaru, solid points with 7th, and then Vitor Baptista in 8th. Bajtskevissa in 9th, and that's another welcome return to the points for her. And Louis Delatraz into 10th, and then Giuseppe Cipriani classified in 11th. Unfortunately, we lost Igor Yurychov and Alfonso Cales. Well, Roy Nissany is taking his time on this final lap. Let's take a look then at the classification. Roy Nissany wins it 6.2 seconds clear of Mathieu Vaxivière. René Binder completes the podium on a fine day for Lotus. They also have fastest lap going the way of Nissany. Then Tom Dillman in 4th, extending his championship lead over Aurélien Panis in 5th. Pietro Fittipaldi 6th from Kanemaru, Baptista, Bajtskevissa, Louis Delatraz, of course, if you missed the start of the race, had to start from the pit lane. He could only recover to 10th. Giuseppe Cipriani then into 11th. In the championship, Tom Dillman, 33 points clear of Louis Delatraz, then Aurélien Panis in 3rd. Roy Nissany jumps up to 4th, and Mathieu Vaxivière and René Binder tied on 91 points for 5th and 6th place. Yurychov in 7th, what might have been finishing outside the points with that retirement, but we are only at the halfway stage of the season. There is still a lot of racing to go. Well, Nissani is thoroughly enjoying this slowing down lap, savouring every moment. And why not? First victory since 2012, and to do it on the Silverstone Grand Prix circuit after a really combative and fine drive. So they swing through Luffield. Thanks to mutual appreciation between Tom Dillman and Aurélien Panis. Now there is the Fortec car of Louis Delatraz. We didn't see much of him, but he lost the engine at the end of the first formation lap when he was due to line up from 5th and restarted from the pit lane, but never seemed to have the pace underneath him as Roy Nissani heads into the pit lane, guns the engine and enjoys the celebration of the Lotus crew. Out jumps Nissani, he does the obligatory nose stand. Oh, he enjoyed that. And why not? Absolutely overjoyed. The Israeli driver also, well, really from a multinational family, French mother as well, as then in second place for Mathieu Vaxivière. Well, from pole position, he'll be a little bit frustrated with that, but nonetheless has recovered well from the poor start. Some fine defensive driving and managing the Michelin tyre, and in particular keeping René Binder behind him, as Binder was snapping at his heels for most of the second half of the race. There is René Binder. So the drivers decouple themselves from their helmets and hands devices once they've gone to weigh in, and then we will be able, when he stops celebrating, which might be sometime next week, to hear from our race winner, Roy Nissani. So Nissani just goes to post-race weight checks, because, of course, the cars very, very even in terms of their specification. They're pretty much identical, except for what the drivers can do in terms of setup. It's why it's such a good championship for teaching drivers the nuances of car development as they look to move up to the very highest levels of motorsport. So we've seen with the likes of Carlos Sainz, Sebastian Vettel, they've all come through the Formula V8 3.5 championship and then moved on into Formula One. Slightly less happy memories, of course, of this series from Silverstone for Daniel Ricciardo, because you might recall he ended up on his roll hoop a couple of years ago after a start-line accident here, as he was about to be promoted up into Formula One. Plenty for the fans to enjoy. We will be back for the second race of the weekend tomorrow, and our coverage will be beginning at 1 o'clock British summer time, and they'll be qualified for that tomorrow morning. So let's hear from our race winner, Roy Nissani.
Roy Nissani securing a great victory in the heart of British motor race in Silverstone.
Yeah, the maiden one. So it's an amazing feeling. It was a really, really tough race, especially with the incident where Igor pushed me off the track, but finally God was with me and let me continue. The car was a little bit damaged, but I could finish the race with it, and I believe even making good lap times. So the feeling is amazing, especially when it's the first one, and we're going to continue in this way.
Congratulations, Roy.
Thank you, Vanka. Thank you.
Let's take a look at the highlights from a dramatic race. And off the line, it was a poor start from Mathieu Vaxivière, and that allowed Igor Yuruchov to get the jump into Cops Corner, clear of Nissani. Behind, René Binder was the driver who was the most upwardly mobile in the early stages, having a great scrap initially with Aurélien Panis. It was decided in his favour before chasing down Tom Dillman. It didn't take too long before Binder had caught and then passed him with a superbly executed move around the outside at Stowe. Meanwhile, at the front of field, Yuruchov and Nissani were getting very close to each other. The Lotus driver arguably a little bit quicker than the Arden man, but he couldn't find a way past. Actually, finding a way off Alfonso Celis's car was his rear engine cover. This, then, the talking point of the race. Nissani pulling the pin to the inside at Stowe, but as the corner tightened, Yuruchov shut the door. They didn't quite give each other enough space. There was contact. Yuruchov forced into retirement. Nissani, with immaculate composure, kept a level head, rejoined in the lead, and then set fastest lap of the race. As you do. This, unfortunately, was Yuruchov's fairly torrid trip back to the pits. Very, very disappointed Yurchov stalking clear of the car and off into the depths of the Arden pit box. So it was a maiden Formula V8 3.5 victory for Roy Nissany, one that he and the Lotus team will cherish. Second place to Mathieu Vaxivière, third to René Binder, and Tom Dillman consolidating his championship lead with fourth. So the teams and mechanics all poised at the foot of the podium, ready for the drivers to come up onto the rostrum. Well, it's not quite the podium that you use in contemporary Formula One, but nonetheless it has played host to legends throughout the years. And this is always one of the circuits that the drivers want to do well on. It's a Grand Prix circuit. It's an opportunity to demonstrate to those higher up the spotlight that these are drivers who can do the business on some of the world's most challenging circuits. Chance to enjoy in super slow motion. Nissany working the wheel. So on to the podium. Third place and a huge smile for René Binder. Second place, Mathieu Vaxivière. And a race winner, Roy Nissany. To the applause and cheers of the Lotus team. And our top rookie was Pietro Fittipaldi with a season and career best 6th. Our winning team, Lotus. A moment to savour for Roy Nissany on the top step of the podium as the Formula V8 3.5 Championship reaches its halfway point of the season. Move on to the presentation of the trophies. Third place to René Binder. Jaime Alguersuari doing the honours with the runners-up trophy for Mathieu Vaxivière. Vaxivière, slightly rueful smile. You never want to not win a race that you start from pole. I think when he watches that back, he will be pleased with the stout performance that he put in. And then Jesus Pereira, the principal of the GT Sport organisation, doing the honours with the presentation of the winner's trophy to Roy Nissany. Jaime Alguersuari also doing the honours with the rookie trophy presentation. It's Pietro Fittipaldi, a very proud moment for Pietro, his first rookie win of the year. And he salvages something what was a disappointing day for Fortec, and Lotus, of course, the winning team. Well, they didn't quite get a 1-2, but nonetheless, get both cars on the podium. Exactly what they would have wanted.
Formula 3.5 race winners. Roy Nissany is presented by Jean-Mathieu Baudin, the award of Michelin tyres. And we thank Jean-Mathieu.
Roy Nissany also joined the Michelin Tyre Award as well. Overloaded with goodies on the top step of the podium as they will pose for the photographs before making merry with the bubbly. Don't forget, we will be back tomorrow. Until then, it's goodbye from Silverstone. Thank you.